Okay guys, so we're looking at the people of enlightenment, and you just watched the video, kind of hit some of the highlights, and I'm just going to kind of go over some of these. I want you to highlight your notes and add in what I have added in. So we'll start with John Locke. I like to say that John Locke is the lover because that kind of helps us remember that he thinks that people are naturally good. So he's from England. Both him and Hobbes are responding kind of to the English Civil War. The book that John Locke writes is called The Two Treatises on Government, and a treatise is just like a fancy essay. So he believes that government exists to protect our natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Now, you may notice that Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence says that we have unalienable rights, which are the same thing as natural rights. Natural rights are rights that you are born with. They are given by God or our Creator, and no one can take them away. Now, Thomas Jefferson, he changed that and said it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But government exists to protect those rights. And he believed that people should be sovereign. Sovereign means authority or power. So in essence, people should have the power. People should rule, which that's what democracy means. Demo, which is people, cracy is ruled by the people. So in essence, the people rule. And so he said that monarchs were not chosen by God, so he doesn't buy into divine right. So he's going to be a fan of democracy. Now, the opposite of him is Thomas Hobbes. On Thomas Hobbes, I like to say he's the hater. So we got Locke the lover, Hobbes the hater. He writes Leviathan. If anybody watched Supernatural, Leviathan were like the really bad demons, so that maybe might help you remember. So he believes that people are born selfish and evil, so therefore we have to have an absolute government or an absolute monarch to keep us in control. Montesquieu, so if you think about his name, Montesquieu, it has 3 syllables, so you think about the 3 branches of government. So he believes that we need to have a separation of powers, 3 branches of government to kind of protect us. And then Rousseau, he uses this idea of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He used the idea of social contract, which the guy talked about in the video, how that government exists to protect our rights, and when they break that, then the social contract has been broken and we have the right to rebel, which is how the American Revolution happened, because we had the right to rebel because the British government had broken their social contract with us. Then that finishes with my favorite of these guys, which is Voltaire. And Voltaire, he wrote Candide, and he believed in freedom of religion, separation of church and state, but he also believes in freedom of speech. I love this quote where he basically says, I may not agree with you, but I will defend to my death your right to say that. And he feels very strongly about freedom of speech. Another way to remember Voltaire is Voltaire gives you a voice. And so that's a way to kind of think about with him. Now, on the back of our notes here, you need to add in these 3 people. So please pause, because you want to make sure you're hearing, so you might want to pause and write, and then come back and listen. So Mary Wollstonecraft, basically she's kind of an early feminist. She's doing stuff that's really different. She didn't get married for a while. She finally does. But she shockingly believed that women could handle talking about politics, and she believed that women should be educated, which was something that was different at that time period. And she writes a book called A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. And so she's a pretty amazing lady, but she just really believed and supported strongly in women's rights, and specifically that women should be educated. Denis Diderot, so he's French, so that's why his name isn't Denis Diderot, it's Denis Diderot. He wrote Encyclopedia, so that might sound familiar, so he's kind of like your predecessor of Wikipedia, and he encouraged a general study of knowledge, and so basically he collected all these different works and had them put into the encyclopedia. So that brings us to Adam Smith. So I usually draw a $sign through Adam Smith because Adam Smith is associated with economics. And we're going to talk more about Adam Smith later in detail. He's in 2 SOLs, so whenever anybody makes it in 2 SOLs, we know they're important. He's considered to be the father of economics. And basically how economics works in our country comes from him. So the last economic system we talked about was mercantilism. And so this is kind of an evolution of that. And he believes that this idea of laissez-faire, which is that the government should not be involved in the economy, but that the economy would kind of do on its own. And he believed that basically because people want to make money, that we would have incentives to come up with new ideas and to make money that way. So we will talk more about Adam Smith later. Make sure you add these on. And then follow the directions and grab your Enlightenment sheet from the back table. And so you need to think about the documents that we mentioned, like the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Think about how those documents in our own country, remember, the American Revolution puts Enlightenment ideas into action. And so we're finally seeing all these guys, John Locke, Montesquieu, Rousseau, and Voltaire. We see those ideas in our own government, in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And so you're going to do some work with that on your Enlightenment worksheet.